Hello, welcome back to the Down to the Wire podcast, episode 16. We are back again with our sporting ramblings. This is the second time recording this because I had an unfortunate mixing of two words. So hopefully this will be it. If that's why you're wondering why we're perhaps a little bit giggly. But there we are. Jack, how you doing?
I'm good, I am. Not a lot's happened in sports, so...
No, it's been a bit of a quiet week, isn't it?
Yeah, my week's been very meh. It's like some, good stuff's happened. United have won. Liverpool have lost. But apart from that, not a lot's really happened in my life. So
Well, I imagine mine's basically the same, except Liverpool lost and United won. So, yeah, there we are. Right, we're going to talk a little bit about Premier League goings on. Have a bit of a discussion about the Champions League as well, how things are all kind of lining up. Yeah, and a few other bits and bobs, I guess. Some good news regarding the lessening impact of COVID on sport, I guess, in the UK for a little bit. Anyway, so we shall see what goes on there. But yeah, should we just crack on with the football?
Let's do that.
Okay, so Manchester City winning again. I'm probably going a little bit off topic now, but they're going to win it now, surely.
Yeah, they're the only team that is playing like Premier League winners.
Yes,
everybody else. Well,
best of
I won't
rest
say
kind of
everybody
stuff.
else. A lot of teams are playing with that sort of top four form, where they'll maybe win 4, lose 1, win 3, draw. Just that sort of they win a lot of games, but they're never consistent. There's always a little bit of a break, but nothing's stopping Man City right now.
No, yeah, like you said, they're the only team that kind of showing that kind of winning mentality.
It's a killer instinct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nobody can stop
they're
them.
the only ones who seem to be, pulling in that kind of solid run of form. And yeah, to be honest with you, this season has turned out to be a little bit like it was a couple of seasons ago, where you had sort of Man City were kind of not off in the distance, but a fairly substantial amount, and then you had United in second. Significant gap between first and second. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's safe to say that City are going to win the league now. But I think, to be honest with you, that's probably the only position right now where you could look at and go, yeah, I think that's pretty much sorted.
Oh, I don't know. I think Sheffield United are pretty soon to be
true.
rock bottom.
That's true, actually. Yeah,
and either them or West Brom. I'm no
fair,
longer on the Sam Allardyce bus anymore.
I feel like
he's not doing very well.
Sheffield United was probably nailed on after about 2 months, wasn't it? So I think everyone kind of accepted that Sheffield are going down.
Yeah. If you can't score goals, you're probably not going to stay up.
No.
It's not a good recipe, that.
Well, and just going back to Man City briefly, you look at the games they have left in the Premier League, obviously. Who have we got? We got West Ham, which right now is a very difficult game. Wolves, United, that's the fixture. Southampton, Fulham, Leicester, Leeds, Villa, Palace, Chelsea, Newcastle, Brighton, Everton.
Yeah.
And I would, on paper, I would have United. I'd have City winning. Apart from West Ham, United, and Leicester, I'd have them winning the rest of those comfortably. To be honest.
Well, yeah, of those teams, well, in essence, 6 of them can be in the top 6 right now, but that does depend on like Villa winning both of their games. So I haven't really included them, but 5 of those 6 teams are in the top 6 right now. And, the West Ham one's going to be a debatable one, because for some reason City just absolutely smash them every time they play them. But also, I haven't looked at what West Ham's games they've played so far, whether they've got a lot of their hard ones to come. But they are, to be fair to them, they're 4th after 2/3 of the season, which is very impressive.
Yeah.
But I'd even consider a team like Leeds or Villa or Wolves, who are a little bit further down the table. I'd probably consider them probably more difficult for City. But if City aren't, if you looked at that and said,
skin, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were to look at it and think, are they going to go for the rest of the season and win every single game? Because they're in such good form. I'm saying United, Leicester, Chelsea. I don't think I'd put Everton into that bracket of teams that could challenge them. So
Well, the thing with Everton as well is that they've been kind of good and then bad, haven't they? As in,
they're more of the team of a top 6 sort of form.
Yes, yeah.
They don't rack up nearly enough wins to be considered for top 4, but
No.
they're there. They're close. You know, they can be top 6 if they win their game in hand. So yes, it's an interesting one with City.
Yeah, you know, and I think the thing is as well is that, you know, even though West Ham are in 4th, and you've got Leicester in the top, like in and around the top 4 as well, if you just look purely on performance, I think that the gap between City and those teams is fairly large at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd have.
Well, I thought City were going to beat Arsenal by more on the weekend. Scoring a goal inside 3 minutes and then not scoring again for the entire game.
I feel like City were a little bit in cruise control though, weren't they? As in, they didn't really have to do a massive amount. I don't think
they weren't. I don't think they were challenged at all, really, in the game in terms of their defence or their keeper.
No.
But the game, they didn't kill it off, which was a little bit strange for City because they have been killing off particularly quite good teams as of late. But uncharacteristically not as red hot as normal. But to be fair, they had a few guys playing that, you know, would come back from injury or perhaps weren't in favour. So maybe Pep's just starting to get their gears going again in a sense. I mean, De Bruyne played close to 60, 70 minutes before getting brought off, and he's just coming back from a few games off.
Yeah.
Gabriel Jesus was playing, and, you know, he's not exactly...
Well, I mean, I think, unfortunately, the way that Arsenal playing at the moment is in... You know, City don't really have to do a lot today to go and beat Arsenal, unfortunately. So, yeah. And you can probably tell that throughout this whole little segment, every time I say I think it's nailed on the City are going to win it, there's a little bit of me that's crying inside, knowing that Liverpool aren't even remotely close.
I know. At the beginning of the season, odds on, I think everyone thought Liverpool were going to go back-to-back. I thought, even though City are a good team, I thought Liverpool was so good last year, and City were quite a bit off the pace last year, that I thought is easily going to be back-to-back wins for Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean...
And they've gone back-to-back home losses. I mean,
the thing is, this is the thing, as in, like, I'm always rubbish at making predictions, because football, especially the Premier League, is so topsy-turvy, as in, like, I remember I watched West Ham versus Newcastle on the first day of the season, and I think I remember saying, I think Newcastle won that game. But I remember saying to somebody, if West Ham don't win this game, they're going to go down. Because I said they've got Newcastle, and then like their next 7 games were like Liverpool. It was ridiculous, the fixture list they had. And
they lost 2-0 to Newcastle.
Yeah, there we go. And then all of a sudden, how many months later are we? That was, you know,
well, that was in September. That was,
yeah. So however many months it's been.
It's about 6, yeah.
You know, West Ham are in the top 4, so the Premier League is just a bit bonkers at the moment, and I think based on previous form, yes, you would have had Liverpool in there, but then who could have predicted the downturn in key players' form for Liverpool, the unfortunate injuries, you know, it's just been a bit of a bonkers season, really, and like Leicester being in the top 4 is not, you know, I wouldn't have had Leicester.
To be fair to
there,
Leicester,
to be honest.
they, as much as probably pre-season, looking at it, you kind of assumed Liverpool, City, and then you probably assume it was going to be United, Chelsea, or you know, one of them two in whatever order, because in a sense that those were the teams which either looked like they had the quality or that at least backed up what quality they had with more. Like Liverpool. I mean, obviously everybody thought they were going to be top 4, but for certain, because they were such a good squad the year before. City, I don't think anybody ever really thought they were going to be outside the top 4. No. United, they didn't back up their squad, but they had a lot of good form going into the end of the season. And Chelsea spent more money than anybody by about 4 times as much. So I think you looked at it and you thought, there's no way those 4 teams aren't making top 4. And to be fair, I mean, Leicester were there or thereabouts for all of last season. I think it was only the last week or 2 weeks before the end which they dropped outside the top 4 and missed out on the Champions League. So I think Leicester have always performed above their squad ability.
Yes.
And I think they actually made some really good signings this off season. So they could well establish themselves as a top 4 team. I mean, it's going to be hard for any team at the moment to establish themselves as a top 4 team because there's at least 6 teams that have a genuine shout of top 4 every season now. It's not like days gone where everybody knew it was going to be United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Arsenal. It's there's genuine competition for it now.
I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. And like heck, am I making predictions because I have no idea. Like I said, apart from City winning the thing, I who knows what position that top 4 is going to be in by the end of the season. Who knows? I mean, I guess it's weird as well because we've had some. Perhaps not so much Leicester's, and you probably would have had them around the top 4 anyway. But West Ham certainly are kind of a bolt out of the blue.
West Ham are a bottom half team, like in everybody's eyes, and I do think until this week when they actually made the top 4, I don't think at any point I thought, West Ham are going to get are close to it. I didn't even acknowledge their existence in the Premier League table.
Crazy, isn't it?
Although I'm just looking at it now because they won their last game, 5th place drew, 6th lost, 7th won. 8th lost, 9th lost, 10th lost. They are on 45 points, so that means... Oh, no. I was going to say, I thought they jumped quite a few places in 1 week, but they haven't actually.
But does that not just show you how crazy the Premier League is, in that on that basis you'd probably have like a lot of those teams losing to teams that are lower down than them in the table. Mm-hmm. You'd have to assume. It's just bizarre.
To be fair, though, you look at the top 5, and if you take all of their last 5 games, like of those 25 total games, they've only lost 2 combined, which is pretty impressive. So that top 5 is hitting form just at the right time, and they are in the top. Like, it's not like there's any teams below them that are hitting form and gradually catching them up, or any of those sort of top 5 that are losing form and gradually falling their way down. It's like the top 5 are pushing away now, or pulling away, and the sort of next 5 below them haven't got any momentum at all to keep up. I mean, to be fair though, you do look at that next 5, and you probably assume some of them would beat some of that top 5, but I mean, as it's going, it's not happening. It's a strange, it is a strange season, but at the same time, I do feel like it's starting to find normality again. Like, only in the sense of, you look at the table now, apart from West Ham being abnormally high and Liverpool being abnormally low, I think you probably go through there and you go, that looks roughly about where they should be from what's happened this season. Like City, United, I mean, Leicester were going to be in that top 5, 6 anyway, so I guess it's not crazy to think of them as a top 4 team.
Yeah.
And you got Chelsea in 5th, and you'd assume they'd be up there. Liverpool are a bit of a bizarre one, being down in 6th, but then you got Everton 7th, Villa 8th, probably overperforming, but still in that mid-table area. Spurs are abnormally low. Arsenal are, bang on with 10th place. And then, well, Wolves are lower, but that's because they've had the injuries. And then you've got Leeds, Southampton, Palace, Burnley, Brighton, Newcastle, Fulham, West Brom, Sheffield. All of those teams you'd expected at the beginning of the season to be in the bottom half, and they are. So I think it is starting to work its way out, where the cream of the crop is starting to rise, and the false positives are starting to come down. So it's finding its way there. But it has been an absolutely crazy season,
Yeah, absolutely bonkers. Yeah, as in... I don't know. I can't decide whether, because I like the fact that the season's been a little bit more competitive, even with Liverpool struggling. But I don't know. I can't decide whether, because I think there's being competitive, and then I think there's just generally being the quality not being as good, which leads to it being more competitive.
I think the quality's been quite high this season.
No, I don't think so. I mean, when you look at the points that teams are having to get in order to get into certain positions, like, well, you just got to look at I don't know.
Yeah, but the point, obviously, it's less points to get 4th than maybe it would have been last season, but that's just because the top 4 haven't had that enormous gulf in quality between them and the rest where they can't compete. A lot of those mid-table, lower table teams have invested heavily. It's paying off, and it's not just, okay, those guys have, they've lost loads and, and it's cut the cut. It's just because it is genuinely more competitive that those teams aren't just dominating, winning every game that they want.
But
You know what I mean?
I think I'm more of a school of thought that it's because the better teams have regressed rather than the middle of the field have caught up, to be honest. That's my kind of thinking.
I get what you mean. I mean, to be fair, some teams have played poorly that shouldn't have. Teams such as Spurs, Arsenal, maybe even Chelsea in the first half of the season. But on an overall perspective, I mean, City have only lost 2 games. United have lost 4. That's probably where I'd have assumed... Well, I probably have assumed United probably would have lost more games at this stage of the season. But City about bang on where they are. I mean, apart from Liverpool, who've obviously lost probably, 5 or 6 games more than anybody expected them to at this stage. I mean, everyone thought they'd be at the top. Everybody else is doing about what you'd expect them to. I mean, Spurs have been a really poor team this season. And to be fair, I think a lot... Well, I don't know if a lot of people would have expected it to be this way, but I think any team that hires Jose Mourinho, you've really got to have some stellar players. Or it's got to be the right formula for it to work with him. You can't just... You can't just have any old players or loads of skillful players. He works with really cult players who've got a drive and passion, and that Spurs side doesn't have a lot of heart in there. Like, you don't look at the guys in that squad thinking, there's a really strong mentality in that side. It's like the squad pretty much gets assembled and disassembled every few years with, like, whenever they get a good player, they'll sell him, make a load of money and buy 6 more, and it's like, well, that sort of topsy-turvy change all the time is probably not very good for them.
No.
But I do... I mean, Leeds have been really good as a promoted team. I mean, they're on 10 wins at the moment. They're in 12th place, but they've scored 40 goals. I mean, West Ham haven't scored 40 goals and they're in 4th, so I think some of their play's been good, but obviously they've not done particularly well on the defensive side of things. Villa have played incredibly well. I mean, that's a team which really shows where you should invest and how you should invest. It's like they've gone, okay, last season we weren't good. What do we do this season? We'll buy a striker. We'll buy a couple of guys who've played either in the Premier League or in the Championship, so they're used to the rigour of our leagues in a sense, because it is a more physical league than, say, the Spanish or the French league, where flair seems to get you a little bit further than it does in the Premier League, for instance. And it's playing dividends. I mean, Everton, I can't think anyone who they've signed this season, but I guess it's been the progression of a couple of seasons of wise spending in a sense.
They signed,
we get a good keeper,
Alan and
get
James
good
Rodriguez,
defenders.
and they seem to be
exactly,
the two big ones.
So they've got some quality coming into that side, particularly James Rodriguez. I mean, he's won Champions Leagues, hasn't he? Well, he would have won last year, wouldn't he? With Bayern?
I'm trying
Was
to
he in that
think
squad?
now. Possibly,
But,
I can't even remember now.
Either way though, he's a quality signing, and I feel like a lot of the teams are signing some better players that are getting them towards the top. But I think it's showing that.
Everton?
Yeah. But is he on a free or is he on a loan?
He was free.
Oh, okay.
Sure,
See, because to be fair, he has played for Ancelotti at both Real Madrid and Bayern, so perhaps he's like
clearly rates him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You see all of these teams, and they're getting some decent managers in as well. I mean, this is why I think it's a better season this year, because I just think everyone's a lot more competitive, and I don't think... I mean, maybe the quality's dropped from the top 2 because of how dominant they've been in the past, but apart from that, I think everybody's taken a step up, and everyone's sort of finessed what they're good at. Like, you see some teams, and their whole thing is just defend, don't concede, and it is genuinely hard to break them down. I mean, Southampton, you could say, arguably have been a soft touch, considering they were in the top 4 early in the season. I don't think anyone thought they were going to stay there, but I think they won. Well, I think they lost about 7 or 8 in a row, and then they've just got a draw this weekend, and they're all the way down in 13th. So
and that included 9-0 loss as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you do get the odd thumping as well. I mean, you had Villa beating Liverpool 7-2. Was it 7-2 that one?
Yeah.
And then you see Liverpool beat Palace 7-1. So you do get the odd... I've really enjoyed this season, just in the terms of freak results, but also genuinely... Like, not freak for the wrong reasons. Teams that are playing the right way, and they're getting results from it.
I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I'd be lying if I said I enjoyed this season as to what's happened so far.
Whereas
in terms of, you can't argue with the kind of entertainment value then, should we call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, should we move on to Europe?
Let's do that.
So yeah, Champions League is looking a little bit, interesting, particularly for certain teams, perhaps like Liverpool, Chelsea, with the league hopes dwindling perhaps a little bit. Does the Champions League become a bit more appealing?
Well, we were saying earlier in the season that this is 16 teams that are left in the Champions League. The 16,
yeah,
I think it's 16, isn't it?
Yeah.
The 16 teams that are left in the Champions League, they were like probably the most competitive 16 we'd ever seen. Like that was what we were saying.
We did, actually.
Yeah, we did a whole. It's incredible, my memory. But we were saying how like tight it's all going to be between them all.
Yeah.
And if anything, those teams aren't performing at the moment.
No,
I mean,
no, they're not.
I picked out, I think, about 3 maybe. But PSG just lost to Monaco this weekend. That drops them down to 3rd place.
Yeah.
And it means they're 4 points off first. Barcelona could slip to 4th if Sevilla win tonight. Atletico did have an enormous lead at first. I mean, I think at one stage we said they were 9 points clear with about 2 games in hand.
It was something absolutely bonkers, and you were like, that's crazy, yeah.
And now it's just 3 points with 1 game in hand, so that's come down massively. And Bayern Munich haven't won in their last 2 games, and they've only got 2-point lead at the top of the Bundesliga. Obviously, those teams are still towards the top, but particularly in the case for a team like Man City, I mean, I know they do have title hopes, but they've got such an enormous gap that they probably don't really have to think about it all that much anymore. But do you think some of the English teams, I mean, Chelsea are finding form, they very good defence as of late. United aren't in it, so we haven't actually got a 4th English team.
No.
Is this as good an opportunity as, say, Chelsea and Man City? I mean, I would say Liverpool, but because they're not in the best of form, I didn't want to. I didn't think it'd probably be a wise.
Well, the thing with Liverpool is that they have got reputation for.
Yeah, they are a cup competition team.
Well, and generally turning up for big fixtures, I guess. As in when you look at the poor results this season, it's not been against, like City or United or Chelsea. It's been against like Southampton, like teams where we should really be winning, or like West Brom, for example, games where we should really be winning, we're not. I guess there is a bit of experience in the squad with Champions League competition. I'm reluctant to say Liverpool should give up on the league because I don't think it's without it's not out of the realms of possibility to. Sorry, when I say the league, I mean getting into top 4 now.
Exactly, that's
not
the
league
thing.
title.
There is so much more. Like that's one of the beautiful things about football is you're not playing for one thing.
No.
You're always playing to whether it's survival, whether it's top 6, whether it's top 4, whether it's the league. There's lots of things you're always playing for.
Yeah.
And I think that is where it's not like maybe other sports where you go, well, I'm safe. Like the NFL, for instance. Let's say your team has, a 2-game lead on any other team in your division, for instance. You go, well, I'm not going to drop out of the playoffs, so they start to rest guys ready towards, because there's no loss in really, or even if you're at the bottom, there's no risk of relegation. But with Liverpool, like, there's no guarantee. It's quite unlikely, I think, that they're going to win the Champions League based on their form and all of the issues they've currently got. I know, I didn't think even you were going to assume they were going to win it or anything, but it's like the knock-on effect of not competing in the league could be so drastic. Because not getting top 4, for instance, that could really hinder, especially, I'm not going to say they're going to go into a rebuild, but especially as they quite clearly need some reinforcements at the very least. It's like you do need that allure of having Champions League football is definitely going to be one which is going to be a driving factor in getting some players to sign for you.
I mean, the thing is that, for City as well, if you going on to some of the others, you got City who are... It's the one competition that they haven't won, isn't it? The Champions League.
They crave it.
Yeah, and do they kind of not risk their league title because I think the gap is big enough?
It's
but
10 points,
do they kind of put it a little bit to the side somewhat? But things change quickly in football. Can you be that naive, I guess, and just assume that you've already won it, kind of thing? Chelsea. I mean, for Chelsea, I guess
Chelsea can't afford to give up on either, really.
No, they can't.
I mean, I know, but like it's a really good opportunity for Chelsea in the sense that they are playing well, but they are fifth. They aren't in the top four yet, and they are playing Atletico Madrid. And as much as we just said that they've lost all these, well, they haven't lost loads of points, but they kind of have at the same time. But it's still Atletico Madrid at the end of the day. They are still top of La Liga. It's like they got Luis Suarez. It's like it does feel like this is going to be an interesting one for them because it is quite a good opportunity. Yeah. Especially with some of the other big teams playing each other.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Juventus, I didn't mention Juventus before, but Juventus, they're not even, I think they're fourth in their league at the moment.
Yeah, they're not doing well.
And they've got Porto, so yeah, exactly. Did you see Lukaku and Ibrahimovic in the game? I was loving that. It was like Lukaku scores and he's just like, "Come here, look at me." It's like I thought they were friends after playing at United, but they were clearly not.
Clearly not.
But yeah, Juventus could go out to Porto if they don't pick it up. Real Madrid actually have got some pretty decent form at the moment.
Although
to have caught up.
I was reading before the start of this podcast that Zinedine Zidane, for that fixture, has 11 fit players.
Oh, that's not good. And that's Atalanta. Yeah, and Atalanta made it to the semis last year.
Atalanta, you can't write them.
You don't know what's going to happen with them because they can just score at will. I mean, I think they scored something like 70 goals last season.
Yeah, they were
crazy amount. I mean, that's where Leicester got their right back or left back from, Castagna, and he's been really good this season. Apart from the period where he was injured, it's like apart from that, they've been a really good side. But Dortmund are down in sixth, and they play Sevilla, who are about to go third if they win their game tonight in La Liga. Barca play PSG. That's one of the big two going out.
Well,
Liverpool playing Leipzig, but Liverpool
big two on paper. I think, given current form, I think you back PSG.
Yeah,
every day of the week at the moment.
I think did PSG they beat them 4-1.
4-1, wasn't it? And Mbappe scored
so I think
two ridiculous
goals. But Bayern play Lazio, so that'll be an easy game for them. And
you just
City play Mönchengladbach, so they'll probably beat them. So there's a lot of the big teams are at risk of going out early in this year's tournament, and who knows? This could be the year for a City, a Chelsea, possibly even. I was looking at some of the other sides. A Sevilla to go on and win this whole thing.
I tell you what, if Sevilla won the Champions League, that would sum up this kind of like pandemic-ridden football period like perfectly, to be honest. There we are.
They've always been a phenomenal Europa League side.
They have, yeah.
Who knows if they can transfer it into Champions League football?
I think I'm right in saying that this is one of their best performances in the Champions League.
Yeah, they always used to finish third in the Champions League.
Yeah, so they'd always drop
meaning that they go
into
back
the Europa.
down to Europa, win the Europa, which automatically qualifies them for the Champions League.
And repeat.
Finish third again. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, just win things.
Well, the thing is as well, it was like, oh, this is a record. It was when Emery was there. They're like, oh, this is a record.
They won it 3 times.
How many times? And it's like, I can't decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because when you win that, you get put into the Champions League, and yeah, I don't know. You don't.
They're serial failures, but winners at the same time.
Yeah. That's the way to do it, isn't it? You're a serial failure. No, I'm not. I win it. I win the Europa every season.
So that's what we're all here for. We want the easy qualification.
It's all man games. All man games. There we are. Should we do our highlight of the week?
Yeah. Do you want to go first on me?
Yeah, sure. I'll go. Mine's kind of like 2-part highlights because they're not really directly sporting related, I guess. The first part highlight is that in England today they've announced that I think it's 25% of fans could return to stadiums by mid-May.
Ooh,
football.
That's good.
That'll be good, yeah. And the second one is that the Formula 1 Series Drive to Survive is returning on the 19th of March.
And I was buzzing about this. Just 20 minutes after the thing got announced, I sent it to our group chat.
Which is it'll be interesting to see what their take is on the whole kind of COVID situation and what impact that had on teams. Yeah, so those are my part highlights of.
But do you think that 10,000 fans possibly in stadiums could be any sort of factor this season? I mean, it's quite hard to get much noise with just 10,000.
That's the last fixture of the season.
Oh, so never mind.
So in terms of, I mean, unless it comes down to the final day, which, given the way the title races go in, probably not. Given the way the top 4 races go in, maybe.
Probably.
I would still be surprised, to be honest. Yeah. Anyway.
my highlight of the week was Cardiff City goalkeeper Dillon Phillips. I think I'm saying that right. He saved 2 penalties against Preston on Saturday, which takes his overall penalty saving record to 11 penalties faced, 11 saved. So he's only conceded 2 out of the 13 penalties he's ever faced.
Sorry, I'll say that again. 11 penalties.
So of the 13 penalties people have taken against him,
right,
he's saved 11 of them.
It's good effort, that, isn't it?
I know.
Not bad.
That's incredible.
That's pretty good.
The Cardiff won 4-0, but 2 of the... I just couldn't believe that he saves 2 in one game. And not even a penalty shootout like that.
Well, either you got to applaud the keeper or criticise the penalty taker. Cause,
do you fear they were good pens? He stuck to the line and he just flew across them to get the save.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that. Right, do you want to guide us on to the next topic, Jack?
Yeah, well, as people may or may not know, this has been a very slow week for sports.
Yeah,
not a lot has happened.
I mean, last week we kind of delved into the saved-up Formula 1 goss. We also had the Six Nations. We haven't had either of those this week, so we've pretty much just had the Premier League football in terms of live sport, haven't we? I say that. There probably are other sports out there.
The cycling season's just started back up. But
Say again, sorry?
The cycling season has just started back up.
Okay.
But I don't know if this is the forum for such sports, because I think I'd be talking on my own for that. I kind of thought, well, in the world of sports, there seems to be this wave of young quality coming through in different ones, and I kind of just put the question out there: who do you think will be the most successful in their field, in a sense? I mean, I listed a few people from different sports. I got Patrick Mahomes of the NFL. I mean, there are other good players in the NFL that are young. I mean, you can look at guys like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, possibly, as young guys who are doing well. But I don't think anybody really thinks of anybody but Mahomes in terms of who is genuine quality in the NFL. No. But he's got a Super Bowl MVP, and an MVP just outright for a season.
Yeah.
I chucked him in there. I got Mbappe. He's got a World Cup, 4 league titles, a Champions League runner-up. I did put Phil Foden. Not because I think he's going to get a ton of individual accolades, but he's only 20, I think. Or 22 is one of them two. But he already has 2 Premier Leagues. No, he's 20 and he's got 2 Premier Leagues. So I thought,
it's not bad effort, is it?
Potentially he could go on to get quite a few in his career. But
well, yeah. I mean, you've put Erling Haaland on there as well, haven't you?
Yeah. In
now,
terms of football, yeah.
Yeah, for me, just skipping over Phil Foden for a second. For me, the next sort of, like we've had Ronaldo and Messi, and we've for best part of a decade now. For me, the next sort of comparison is Mbappe and Haaland, based on what we've seen, I think.
I know what you mean. I feel like Mbappe is a touch more, if I'm honest.
You see, that's interesting. That's interesting because as of last season, I think I remember saying this to you a few times, like I was looking at Mbappe, not that I'm sort of any amazing football connoisseur, but sitting there as a football fan, I was like, yeah, I think Mbappe's going to be the next big thing. And then he was really disappointing in the Champions League final. I know PSG weren't great, but and I appreciate that Mbappe's young, but considering he's like been billed as this kind of next big thing, he was like crazy quiet in that game.
To be honest, though, I do think that Ronaldo, to be fair, Ronaldo's played in so many big games that maybe I'm just nitpicking at the ones he wasn't particularly good in, but on the large, I never thought Ronaldo really turned up for the enormous games. I mean, you look at the Euros semi-final where they beat Wales, and I don't think... Did he score in that game?
I think he did, or it was like a deflection or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
But then in the final, it was Eder who got the winner in the 119th minute. And Ronaldo didn't really play much of a part in it.
Well, he did come off injured and need his knee ligaments. But no, you're right. As in, for a little while, Ronaldo... But then
you go for the Champions League ones. You even get like Bale scoring some of the crazy goals to win them. It ever seems to be Ronaldo who's on the golden touch for them for the finals.
It wasn't the fact that Mbappe wasn't the... it's not like, because he's not the scoring the goal and doing this and doing that. But as in, like, he didn't even... As in, it was a complete no-show.
Yeah.
As in, it was particularly poor, I thought.
Do you not think that was in part because Bayern Munich were just so dominant?
Possibly.
I mean, that team was... I mean, even did they have David Alaba on the side, which was obviously he's just as quick as Mbappe.
Well, they brought Coutinho on off the bench and stuff like that, didn't they? Isn't it? It was ridiculous.
There's a wealth of quality.
But I don't know what it is about Haaland though. He just seems to have that killer instinct for me, whereas Mbappe just doesn't seem. For me, I don't know. I just when I look at Haaland play and when I look at Mbappe play, I think Mbappe is the more silky player. But I think I don't know. It's a bit of a tricky one.
I think if anybody's looking at the two, I genuinely think that Mbappe's the player they'll be more likely to sign. Well, more willing to sign if they could. I just think he's got that sort of X factor where he can go, yeah, I'm going to flick it on and just blitz people. Like, I know Haaland's good, but when you're a centre forward, I feel you do have an impact on the game. But you look at a guy like Robert Lewandowski, he's been at the top of his craft for years. And last year he probably should have won the Ballon d'Or, but didn't. Because of COVID, which doesn't really make sense because it's a trophy, not really a ceremony. But you see a guy like that, and it's like he's never dropped, but it took other players in other positions to perform badly for him to be a genuine contender for that. Obviously, he still played amazing, but I do feel Haaland's sort of career is going to be based mostly on how other players around him fit with him and the sort of service he gets, because you can't impact the game a huge amount as a striker if you haven't got certain pieces around you. Because if you haven't got those pieces, if you haven't got those pieces and you end up playing for a team towards the bottom half like a Crystal Palace, I mean, who knows? Benteke could have been a phenomenal striker. We'll never know because he never had the pieces around him. But so it meant that he's always playing on like the halfway line. Yeah, he's never going to score goals in that situation, so he needs them all to be further up the pitch. And if Benteke is playing for, say, a Man City, who knows? He could be a 40-goal-a-year striker. You see, it's the sort of the circumstances you're in as a striker. Whilst when you're sort of one of these wingers playing at some of these other clubs, I feel like you've got more license to put your stamp on the game and
maybe
show your quality. And I just think that's why Mbappe's probably going to have a bigger impact.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, I mean, obviously you can't judge team accolades directly with the individual, but at the end of the day, Mbappe has won a World Cup, which there aren't many players of his age who can. He's won, apart from the Champions League, he's won everything he could possibly win. So, I guess at that point, you can't really argue with how good he is, can you?
I mean, if Haaland wins a World Cup, I think Haaland will be the greatest player of all time because I don't think anyone thinks Norway are going to win. Is it Norway?
No. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't think Norway are going to win a World Cup anytime soon.
No, probably not.
Being as he's the only player I know that plays for Norway.
But yeah, going back to the Phil Foden thing, I saw something interesting the other day, and I think it was an interview with James Maddison from Leicester, and they asked him basically, do they think this next generation of England players is going to be like that 2010 catalogue of Spanish players?
Were they saying that with James Maddison being considered in that batch? Because
yes.
James Maddison's... I don't know how old he is now. I'm going to double check this now. But
I don't think he's massively old.
Is he not? I kind of assumed he was quite old now.
But even so, even if you don't include
he's 24. James... But so I guess he's still in this batch.
So
when I see this batch, I'm more thinking Jadon Sancho, Mason Greenwood, Phil Foden. I'm not really considering James Maddison in that. I feel like, but to be fair, he's actually quite close to them in age. But you also actually have guys like Jack Grealish, who's probably not miles off those guys' age.
Nope.
So, maybe this could be the start of something, but to be fair, that's probably the biased English press.
I mean, let's just put this into context now. They're comparing, like, Jadon Sancho with David Villa.
To be fair,
I mean, I guess you've got to consider. Say again, sorry.
That Spanish squad isn't just like when you see these English lot, they are all between 20 and 24. But you see that Spanish squad, you've got your Iniestas and your Xavis who are about 32, 33. And you also had some guys like Pedro who are in their low 20s. So I don't know how you can really compare them as a batch, because I think you also have to consider some of the other guys, like Sergio Busquets. I mean, I mean, he's only literally recently retired, if he has retired from Spain.
No, he hasn't.
So it's like he's been there that entire time.
Well, he might have from international, actually.
Yeah, but I know he's still playing for Barca. But you know what I mean. In that sense, I don't think that Spanish side can be considered just on the basis of a few young guys coming through at the same time.
But as in, if you look at the 2010 World Cup winning team, they were of a similar age. You know, as in, I don't think Iniesta and Xavi were as old as you said they were in 2010. Because bear in mind, as in, Xavi retired. Xavi retired from Barcelona when they won the Champions League with Messi, Suarez, Neymar, and that was 2015, I think.
Iniesta was 25 at that point. So
there you go, in his prime. Yeah. So, but then, just for context, what they're saying there is they're comparing James Maddison at 24 with Iniesta at 25.
Although Xavi was 30, just saying. But yeah. But yeah, I know what you mean. I guess they're saying there's so much promising players coming through at this moment. But to be fair, they're all attacking players. And I don't know how that balances
Jack,
out.
I'm pretty sure we've been here before. Have we not?
In what sense?
Dare I say it? Golden generation?
Oh. To be fair, though, that England side of before genuinely had some insane players in it. Like how they
it did. But isn't that the thing? Like they're saying, compare it to the 2010 World Cup squad when you got players like, with the greatest respect, James Maddison, compared to like Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Wayne Rooney, Rio Ferdinand, Ashley Cole. Like, I feel like this...
There's quite a gulf there.
Yes.
Like, to be fair, I don't think James Maddison is of the quality to be considered in those guys. He's got the form at the moment, but, I mean, you've also got to look who they're playing against. It's like, I can't rattle off who England were up against in those times, but you had peak Brazil, that's all I remember. And some peak Italian sides. But then you go to our time, and it's like, well, that French side, I mean, they've got two teams, which could probably outplay the English side. You look at the Germans, and they've probably 1.5 teams worth of players that can outplay the England side. I mean, even the Spanish side's slowly creeping back to where they should be, and the Dutch side is phenomenal at the moment.
Yeah, it's about as good as it's been in the last 10 years, isn't it?
So, yeah, I do feel, when they always say like iron sharpens iron, I do think that there's a lot of good players coming through, but they're all making each other better, which is kind of why a lot of these other nations are sort of almost doubling down on how good they are, because they've just got so many players coming through of good quality.
There we are. Anyway, a little bit of a tangent.
But let's go to other sports. Do you think either George Russell or Charles Leclerc could have a sort of impact in Formula One that, say, a Schumacher or a Hamilton has had?
I'm gonna go with no. For a couple of reasons. I think Leclerc will win titles.
Titles, plural, more than one.
Yeah, potentially. If Ferrari can provide him with the car consistently, which they don't seem to be able to do at the moment. I think the thing with comparing to Hamilton or Schumacher is in, how old is Charles Leclerc now?
I shall check. But you can keep talking.
Because I think I'd be right in saying that at the age of
23.
23, there you are. Well, I think, bear in mind, Hamilton had won a title in his second season in Formula 1.
Mm-hmm.
You'd assume that Leclerc isn't going to win one this season, based on the fact that the majority of the kind of engine stuff has been frozen. So you'd assume that it's not going to be until at least the next regulation change, which is the following season. And even then, it's like, well, are Ferrari going to be able to catch up with Mercedes in that time?
Mm-hmm. Well, to be fair, though, they had that big drop-off this year because there was something not strictly legal about their engine. But
the season before,
they have for many years had a very good car. I mean, they haven't... Have they made a new engine for this year? Like, it's completely different from last year. Am I right in saying that?
Well, no, well, possibly, but as in, what they have this year will be based off what they used last year.
Okay, so that's not a good sign.
No,
but
that's
to
what
be
I
fair,
mean.
they're Ferrari. They're the oldest team in F1.
And
if any team should be able to sort that out, it should be them. So who knows?
Yes,
They could
but then
be good.
the thing is, Jack, I feel like people have been saying that for near enough 10 years now. When you think of how... I'm trying to think of the last Ferrari champion was Kimi Räikkönen in 2007, I think.
Yeah, but at the same time, you've got to consider that I don't think anybody can match what Mercedes are doing. They're just too efficient, too ruthless.
No.
So
I think
Ferrari have been their main competitor up until last year.
I think based on that point alone, I don't think you're ever going to... Well, I say ever. In the immediate future, I don't think you're ever going to see anyone dominate as much as Hamilton has at Mercedes. Unless George Russell goes there, and then I could very well see it happening, to be honest. Maybe not initially, but long term as he gains more experience. And I get what you're saying about Ferrari, but as in... I mean, for parts of that season before... Like, let's write off last season, because last season they were rubbish. But the season before that, you know, they were close in parts, but, yeah, I don't know. Ferrari, they just need to get their act together, really. To be honest, it's as simple as that. They just need to get their car sorted, get their team sorted, because I don't think it's just purely the car. You know, when you look at some of the tactical decisions they were making last year, it's clearly not of a championship winning standard.
No, that is true.
Sorry, I take a swig of water there.
Yeah, so, but to be, I mean, when I went for the F1 guys, I was kind of looking at them thinking, who's young, who's promising? And I literally could only pick out Leclerc and Russell. I mean, you could look at Stroll and go, he's got a pole.
What about
I
Verstappen?
don't think anybody... Oh, good shout. I don't know why. I've always just assumed Verstappen...
Because Verstappen has been there for so long, it's easy to forget that he's probably about the same age as these guys.
He's 23.
There you go.
That's a whole... Oh, he's the same age as Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
He's younger than Charles Leclerc by 16 days.
Yeah. It's easy to forget.
Wow. If honestly though, if Verstappen was in a Mercedes, if Mercedes went, you know what, we don't really need to show any loyalty to George Russell, because to me they don't. It's, you know, it's a dog-eat-dog world Formula 1. They don't have to show him anything. I mean, to be fair, George Russell does look very promising, so I don't know why they wouldn't, because it doesn't really make it. But if they went, Verstappen, let's win everything, they probably would. I mean, they'd probably do that with George Russell, to be honest. Yeah. And I think George Russell's got a bit more of a level head than Verstappen, which I feel like the Mercedes would like. Do you not think Verstappen's matured a little bit? I think he has a little bit, but I think just his nature is just a bit more fiery, and you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not. I think you need that little bit of venom in the way you act and the way you drive, where you go, nah, I'm not taking it. A little bit, yeah. But as much as Verstappen has, maybe not. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's such a phenomenal driver, though, in terms of getting the absolute extremes out of that car. Yeah. I mean, for all we know, that Red Bull car may be the third best car or fourth best car, and Verstappen's just driving it to these positions. I mean, I was looking the other day, because we're doing a Formula 1 fantasy, and I was looking at Verstappen, and it was like he retired 5 times last season. They weren't all his fault. A few of them were engine failures and stuff like that. But Bottas only retired once, and Bottas finished with just 9 points more than him. And it's like, there's four races that Verstappen, well, 4 more races that Verstappen didn't score in because of engine issues. And it's like, if he had, good gracious, he'd have absolutely destroyed Bottas last year. Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, at the end of last year, I wouldn't have said Bottas was massively off the pace of Hamilton. But since looking at some of the results he's had, I've been like, I don't know if it's just bad luck on his part, or if he just genuinely isn't as quick as it looks. Like, I don't even know if he... I mean, if you were to rank all of the Formula 1 drivers, I don't know if Bottas is getting into the top 5. Just from looking at some of the results he gets, I'm thinking he's not particularly quick. Well, I mean, for me, the whole argument of, the only reason Hamilton wins is because of his car is thrown out on that very basis. Because on that argument, you know, Bottas should win an equal amount of races to Hamilton, which, as you've just said, he clearly doesn't. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, for Mercedes,
they're just in that position at the moment. It's like, well, we could get somebody else, but Hamilton.
No need to rock the boat.
Yeah, but why rock the boat? As in, like, the end of the day, Jack, they've won the constructors like 8 times now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, consecutively. Like, and okay, they want the Drivers' Championship as well, but the bottom line is Hamilton finished first in the championship, but Bottas finished second, didn't he?
Yeah,
Pretty sure he finished second.
Just.
So even though Bottas doesn't beat Hamilton often, from Mercedes' point of view, they're like, well, as long as he finishes immediately behind Hamilton, that's fine with us.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that for them.
Yeah, I go. Yeah, Mercedes from their point of view don't need to do anything different.
No,
but just look at it and you think, gosh, like, do you not think that it's a little bit passive? I do understand it. There's absolutely no need to rock a boat if you are that far ahead. If they'd won 2 or 3,
Jack, I'd say yes, it is passive.
But do you
given
not
the
think
fact that they've won like 8, let's not forget that that's a record.
They've not really had any competition during the time, and they was pretty close when the Ferrari, not last year but the year before, they were close-ish, were they not?
But that's because they bent the regulations.
Yeah, I got what you mean there, but in that scenario, you had 2 cars that were quite close to each other. Well, they bent it, but it wasn't 100%. But it wasn't, you know what I mean?
Oh, no,
they couldn't 100% say that it was.
It was. That's why they were made to take it off their car.
Yeah, but in a sense, it's not. Well, when they've come up against someone equal, they haven't blown everybody away. And if Red Bull have got it right with Perez, and if they're both genuinely competitive all the time, they might need to make one of those drastic moves and go, hang on. Because to be fair, Bottas probably finished behind Verstappen more often than he finished ahead of him. If you're only getting 9 points more than him with 4 more race finishes. But if Perez is genuine there as well, and Bottas can't finish above him either, you really are putting a lot of your eggs into Hamilton's basket that he's going to win all of the races pretty much to negate the difference between him and Bottas. Because, I mean, it just, to me, I've never thought about it before, but it does seem a little bit passive now that I think about it, that they aren't being proactive.
In mind, to win the constructors, you don't necessarily have to have first and second every single race. As in,
and I get that, but if Perez catches Verstappen,
they were saying at Imola they'd still be ahead if they just had Hamilton's points or something crazy like that. So, and I think I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the fact that you say that Mercedes haven't had much competition, the reason they haven't had much competition is because Mercedes have made an absolutely incredible car. And that's through their own doing. It's not that the other teams have been bad. It's just that Mercedes have been that good. And they're on their own, really.
And I get that, what they're saying about Hamilton alone. But that's because, in a sense, Verstappen's also on his own at Red Bull. But if you have somebody matching close to Verstappen, those combined points might put them over the edge. Because they'll be taking all those points off
I think
Bottas as well.
I get what you're saying about the Red Bull thing, but I don't... As in when they're saying, Hamilton could have done it on his own, I think that was more a recognition of how many points Hamilton had. Whereas when you say, with Red Bull, it's the same scenario because Verstappen's the only driver, I think that's because of how poor Albon is, And I think Bottas does need to up his game. I'm not saying that Bottas is the perfect number 2 driver, because if he was, he'd finish second every race behind Hamilton. But, at the end of the day, from Mercedes' point of view, they could get, realistically, who would they get in now to replace Bottas? You'd probably assume George Russell, wouldn't you? As in, bring him through as the next thing. George Russell isn't going to be as passive as Bottas is. When Mercedes say, right, Valtteri, you've got to come in now because we need to create a gap for Lewis or something like that, George Russell's going to be like, why am I creating a gap for Lewis? I want to win. Whereas Bottas doesn't. Bottas is a bit more passive. So, yeah, I think for Mercedes where they are at the moment, I don't think it... I get what you're saying, but at the same time, is it worth the risk? I'm not sure it is for Merc at the moment.
I get what you mean. I mean, I'm just not a fan of the passive way of doing things when it just could go so wrong so quickly. I mean, if you look at maybe some other sports where if they just remained passive and didn't really challenge any of the players, it could go a little bit downhill. I mean, I haven't really thought of any examples, but I'm not going to say that it's because they didn't have any competition. But that Liverpool squad, some of the guys' performances dropped, and Matt, it's not a really good example of that because they haven't really. It's not the same scenario. You've got two guys or whatever. Or maybe if you went to cycling, it's like okay, we'll put Chris Froome. They'll always have Chris Froome at the top, and it's like if you always have Chris Froome, then a bunch of other guys just sort of helping him out. No one challenging him. It's like you become a bit stale, and then you see another team like Jumbo Visma, which is another good cycling team, come along, and they'll go, well, we keep changing it up a little bit, and we maybe don't have the bike that Ineos have, but together, all of our guys, we can do enough damage to Froome that he isn't going to win these things. And then they go, well, okay, we'll go get Geraint Thomas, we'll go get a guy called Egan Bernal, and we're going to dominate. And that's what they did. And I think for teams to stay at the top, I think they do genuinely have to keep it fresh and keep being ambitious. I don't think they can afford all the time to be stale.
I agree with you, but I think there is the caveat in Formula 1 in that just because their driver lineup is staying the same, it doesn't mean that everything is staying the same. As in, like, a lot of Formula 1 is based on the R&D stuff that we don't see as fans, like, on the face of it. So a lot of the progression that Mercedes have made in the past 5 or 6 years has been on their car rather than their driver. They've got their driver package, and they look at their driver package and they go, right, that's fine, we're happy with that. And then they go, right, now it's all about making an unbeatable car effect. As in, I wouldn't mind betting that a lot of Mercedes resources this off-season is focused on making the Mercedes better behind cars relative to being in front of cars. Because that was one of the big talking points last year, in that the Mercedes was absolutely flying when it was out in front on its own, but as soon as they had to go chasing anybody, they were struggling because the engine would overheat. So, I think it's easy to say that Mercedes aren't progressing because their lineup is saying the same. And on the face of it, that can be how it appears. But ultimately, I think the majority of the legwork now... Because, again, what we've got to remember for Mercedes, it's not... they're not having to make giant leaps. They're kind of just making minor adjustments now to make themselves that little bit more competitive. And they were so dominant last year that even a minor improvement is probably still going to keep them a long way ahead of the teams following.
They will keep them ahead, but I think one of the key ways they were dominating last season was because of the DAS system they had. And they won't have that this year because I'm pretty sure they wrote out the rules.
They did.
And the DAS wasn't just for straight line speed. It was also to preserve the tyres because you were using a different part of the tyre when they angled them inwards so that they weren't dying quickly. But Mercedes have always had that issue with tyre wear. And I mean, who knows? Perhaps they actually take a small step backwards if they start to make a car to go behind cars and they lose the range of their tyres. It's like maybe some of the others go forward and Mercedes sort of stagnate.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the thing is, it's quite easy to go, oh, well, things aren't working, let's change the drivers. That's what Ferrari have done. And Ferrari have not won a championship in 14 years. However long it is. Yeah, 14 years. So I think it's quite quick to say, quite quick. It's easy to say Mercedes needs to keep things fresh, and I do agree with you. But I think if this was like after year 3, I would probably say, Mercedes need to change things up a bit. But, they've won it 8 times, the constructors. And I was just trying to think then, who was the last non-Mercedes Formula 1 world champion?
Rosberg. Oh, no, non-Mercedes. Oh.
Yeah, it was Vettel. It was Vettel at Red Bull.
Well, that is a long time ago.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, isn't it? It's kind of like, it's like in the NFL, it's like the Patriots. It would be like after sort of like 8 years going, all right, well, they need to... Yes, they've been very good, but they need to change it up now. And, okay, different sports is, things are relative, but I think there is... I guess what I'm saying is it would be high risk for Mercedes to now go and say, right, we'll get rid of Bottas and we'll get George Russell in. Especially this year when the regulations haven't changed. I think they would be more likely to do it next year, to be honest.
It could be risky, and obviously everything's more risky when you change, but I don't see there being much downside in terms of... I think I'd be pretty confident in saying that Russell's a faster driver than Bottas. So I don't see... I mean, the only risk there is upsetting Hamilton. But I don't think...
Well, and...
If Hamilton can't handle that, he's he probably should be able to handle that. He's a 7-time world champion.
But let's not forget, when Hamilton and Rosberg used to race, there were an awful lot more collisions than there are for Mercedes now when it's Bottas.
Yeah. Do you not think that was in part just due to Rosberg kind of being a little bit more feisty? I've always thought of... I mean, Russell, I'm sure, would love just to learn and sit behind Hamilton for a little bit and go... Do you really think he'd try and push him?
I think so. As in, at the end of the day, George Russell is a young Formula 1 driver. He's there to win. He's not there to sit around. And I think you saw that when he took over for Hamilton for that one race. I think it would have been quite easy for George Russell to go there and just be like, right, if I just finish behind Bottas, job done. But that's not how he was...
No, I think the scenario is a little bit different there, because I think he knows his direct competition for a seat is Bottas. So if he can really stick it on him and hammer him into the ground in one race, I think then everyone goes, oh, the question genuinely lingers. But I don't think he'll have that same desired effect if he tried to do that against Hamilton.
I guess what I'm saying is, having George Russell shadow Lewis Hamilton, is that any different from when Leclerc joined Ferrari shadowing Vettel? And how did that work out after 1 year? By the end of the season, at the end of the season, Charles Leclerc was made their number one driver. So I think George Russell wouldn't go there just to be a seat occupant. He'd be there to win, I think.
That's fair. That's a good argument, that. Didn't think about the Leclerc-Vettel one.
Yeah. Anyway.
I did put Naomi Osaka from tennis.
Okay.
So I thought, let's get some other sports in there. And she has got 4 Grand Slam titles as of the Sunday just gone.
Yeah.
So I thought, perhaps, but to be fair, she has to match Serena Williams. And as good as you can be, is it? Yeah. To be fair, in Serena's career, she's had quite a few good people to go up against. But
yes.
I think women's tennis is taking a small downturn at the moment in terms of, you could have named your Sharapovas and some of the others. I'm not great on my tennis, but Azarenka, there we go. See, I know some names.
Well, Muguruza beat her, was it Wimbledon not that long ago?
Yeah, exactly. So you get quite a few of the bigger names back then, but they're just not as many of them now. So I think she could potentially match, but I don't think that would be on the same dominating level as Serena. But I kind of just checked it out.
Sorry, on tennis, do you know if Wimbledon's going ahead this year?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Hopefully.
But I don't see why it wouldn't, in a sense, because
tennis. I'm rubbish at it. I've never played it, but I enjoy watching it.
Seems like a slog. I can't imagine how on earth you'd learn it if you were just playing with one other person, because that ball, you'd be chasing that for half the time. It's like, I just can't do this.
Fair enough. Should we move on to our shock of the week, or shocks of the week? My shock of the week, which we've already mentioned, is the fact that West Ham are in the top 4. Completely caught me off guard. I know they'd been doing all right, but until they got into the top 4, it was like, whoa, hang on a minute. I didn't sign up for this at the start of the season. Yeah, anyway,
it, though.
That was my shock.
Best team in London at the moment, that makes them. That's crazy. Mine is that Thomas Tuchel brought off Callum Hudson-Odoi just 31 minutes after bringing him on. So at half time he brings on Hudson-Odoi, goes, he's not really in this game, takes him straight back off.
Well, the thing was as well, it was the fact that he not only did that, he then absolutely threw him under the bus with his comments after the game when asked why did you do it. He basically said I didn't like his energy. It's like, whoa, all right.
Yeah, but to be fair, apparently he had the desired effect, because today apparently Hudson-Odoi is back to his normal self, giving it everything. So maybe Tuchel's a little bit of a genius at this whole mind management.
Who knows? Perhaps he's all right at this management malark.
Yeah.
Who knows? There we are. Should we have a quick discussion about COVID in sport before we finish?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, go on. You take us through it.
Well, the French squad has got lots of COVID at the moment. And I don't quite know what's going to happen with them, because, I mean, when you look at rugby, that is a much more hands-on contact sport.
Contact, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so you are really breathing in the air, the other guys are breathing out. So
this is the thing. James Haskell did a piece on this the other day, because rugby players have been told off for celebrating, like high-fiving, all that kind of stuff. And he said, in terms of rugby, he said it's absolute nonsense, because he said, when you think of a scrum, you're basically going into a 16-man huddle like all sweaty and breathing, and then you tell them that you can't high five one of your teammates. It's just bonkers. But no, like
nonsense,
rugby is one of those sports, isn't it? Because I'm trying. Like Dupont has got COVID, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's one of them,
today,
and
yeah.
I can't. Who's the other one? Gautier, was it?
Some of the bigger ones.
I'm pretty sure it was. Oh no, what's his name? I can't remember his name now. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. Yeah, it was
Olivon.
Yes, that's
Olivon's
it.
got it.
It's captain.
Bryce Doolan, Cyril
Doolan.
Bile.
Doolan is 15.
I can't say his name.
What was the
Roman
other one?
Taufifenu. You try saying that.
How do you spell it, mate?
Taofifenua. Roman Taufifenu. Cyril Bile. It's like Braille, but without the R. Okay. Cyril Bile. We've got a Pito Malvaca.
Sorry, you pronouncing these names has made this podcast.
These are great. These are fun. I think I'm saying he's correct.
You may well be. You may well be.
Oh, good. At least I'm not getting shown wrong. If you knew them, that would be worse.
Oh, no.
We'll
mate,
just take it as I've said all these
If I knew them, I wouldn't let you go through the pain of trying to pronounce them. That would be brutal. I have no idea. Oh, I know Doolan, because Doolan's the 15, I think, and you got Dupont. Olivon's captain is the...
Arthur Vincent.
Yeah,
Julian
he's the
Marchand. Gavin Villiers.
Okay, so...
Mohamed House.
Would it be easier to name those who don't have COVID in the French squad?
It may do, but to be fair, it's a big team, 15 players. But yeah, it's about half.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Just, I'll be honest, I thought Wales must be playing them. Like, we've had 2 people with red cards so far in the 2 games we've played, and it's like, well, why not play a French squad with COVID? It's like, I was thinking, we're going to have handed the Six Nations in this week, but we're not playing them to the last game of the season, unfortunately. So we're not going to be seeing any sort of ease from this. But I think not the Irish. The Irish just lost them, didn't they? I think the Italians play them next, so that might be a bit of a... Oh no, they
stopped.
I can't remember who they're playing.
I thought they were playing Wales next.
No, I think they're playing Wales in the last game.
Let me have a look at the fixtures.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I can't. Yeah. No, because I can't remember who the...
I'm sure I checked it beforehand and thought, no, it's Wales last, but if it is Wales,
Scotland. It's meant to be Scotland.
Yeah. Okay, so Scotland have got a nice game.
Here we are.
But yeah, so they've got COVID, and it's like, well, there doesn't seem to be anything in place in rugby. They don't seem to. There was no risk of it. Like when the NFL got COVID, any team that got it, it was like that team doesn't play, and we'll just reschedule it later on. They moved all the fixtures around really well, and managed to get games off. They'd have games on Tuesdays and Mondays.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think they'll reschedule it.
Oh, okay.
I think.
But then,
yes, sir, go on.
You see other sport like cycling, Alpecin Fenix, which is one of the bigger teams. They've just withdrawn from the United Arab Emirates tour because one member of their team got the virus. Even though one of the race leader of the whole thing was on their team, they took the whole team out because they don't want to compromise the sport. And it's like, wow, different sports are doing this very different. Well, that's the rules in cycling, so it does sort of. Well, I don't know if it raises a question as such, but it's like. There seems to be there needs to be a bit of a one rule for everybody, because at the moment it just seems that different rules for different sports, different teams, different players. So I mean, it doesn't seem.
Do you reckon there's different consistency of testing? Do you think? Do you reckon that, like for football, for example, I wouldn't half be surprised. That's what I mean. As in, like they'd be tested like.
Well, they were making the argument early on that football players should get the vaccine first. Not because they deserve it, but because it would save the NHS money. So in a sense, by giving the footballers, then the Premier League hasn't got to order loads of samples, but they could still provide the money to the NHS that they want. In a sense, it would be like a win-win for both, where all the players get vaccinated,
but then I guess
the Premier League keeps contributing without costing the NHS anything.
But that depends on whether you look at it from a financial perspective or an international health perspective.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
But I guess
in a sense, they get all that money for not having to do any vaccines. Probably would help them out in the long run. But
I mean, I guess what I was saying was more the fact that, you know, if you're able to do like a consistent testing all of the time with football, with rugby, if they're doing like, say, one COVID test a day, football they may be doing like one every half day or something. You're more likely to kind of weed out all of those with coronavirus with the football, aren't you? Whereas, all it would take is one false negative and then you're stuffed with them. And it clearly looks like something's gone on with the French squad because there've been others in other sports, where like one player has had, like for example, if you look at Liverpool, Thiago had COVID, Sadio Mane had COVID, and then that was it. Nobody else had COVID in the Liverpool squad. Whereas like it's almost like the French squad. Like I was just it was on BBC Sport then. They said I think it was 10 players. Yeah, wow. 10 players, including. Here we go, including Olivon. So you've got. I'm just trying to think. So you've got Olivon. Dupont,
you see that? Are they still training now?
Marchand, say again, sorry.
Are they still training though, the French squad?
Probably, I would assume so.
But you see, you go to other sports like the NFL, and it's like
They
okay,
just stopped, yeah.
One guy gets it. Let's say he's in the offensive line. All of the offensive line then has to isolate. Everybody else can't go into the facilities. They all have to go from home.
Sorry, they've said a decision will be made about whether the match will be played on Wednesday.
Okay. So 2 days to find out, but who knows? But do you not think that gives them an unfair advantage now, especially in such a physical sport as rugby? Both France and Scotland could have sort of a 2-week break towards this next round.
Maybe, but I feel like it's best efforts, to be honest.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, if they have 2 weeks off now, and then they just play back-to-back...
Exactly. It just means that they lose the gain at the end.
Yeah.
And you could argue that by having to play it, they lose a bit of momentum. So, I feel like it swings and roundabouts. It's not ideal, but as in, I think it's probably about as fair as they could do at the current time.
That's fair enough. Well, you see F1, they didn't let anybody race with COVID. I mean, obviously I don't think you'd want to race with COVID.
I was about to say, it'd probably be like brutal, like Formula 1 driving.
The G-forces, you're like, I just cannot be bothered for this right now.
Yeah, it's like, how do we make this harder? Yes, we'll make the Formula 1 drivers struggle to breathe.
Gosh. Yeah. But yeah, it was just a weird one with that because Formula 1 was one of the sports that was probably more fussy about it than any of the others in terms of...
Yeah.
It was like no one's entering this sort of compound until the race weekend's over. It was just everybody in and out is getting blitzed with tests.
Yeah, it does seem that like different sports have taken different approaches, doesn't it? And it seems like the NFL went with kind of mass testing and kind of mass isolation if somebody was positive.
To be fair, I think the NFL has done it better than any other sport.
Probably.
Like I know, obviously they've had more cases than some others, but you got to remember it's cases. Yeah, exactly. So that's first and foremost. There's been no lockdowns in the US, so there's just been chaos there.
Not?
No, they didn't bother with the lockdowns in the end.
That's mental.
Trump didn't bother, and by the point that Biden came in, he was like, "Well, it's too late now." He's like, "What's it going to do?" You can't lock down everybody at this stage. But with the NFL, it's like they're not the squads. Firstly, 53 man. Not including the practice squad of players, which might be another 30. Yeah. So there's about 90 guys that are just players, and they test every member of personnel. So that's coaches, assistant coaches, specific position coaches, all your trainers in terms of like, massagers, whatever, all those guys. It's like you're testing probably about 250 people in 32 different teams. Every single day, twice a day. Crazy, and it's like, that's just incredible. And the fact that they didn't have to delay it. Like, they delayed some games, but the fact that they got the whole season completed in the time span that it was meant to, and had the Super Bowl on time, that's incredible, that. They really got that sorted.
Fair play. Big up NFL.
Yeah,
they did well. Should we finish off with our start of the week?
Let's do that.
Okay, my start of the week. Now, bear with me on this one because it's more it's I'm trying to think of how to word this. It caught me off guard, this stat, and that is since Jurgen Klopp took charge of his first UEFA Champions League match at Liverpool in September 2017, Liverpool have registered more clean sheets in the competition than any other side. Which, to be honest with you, really caught me off guard, because let's not forget, that first season, the first part of that Champions League campaign, we didn't even have Van Dijk. It's like we were playing like Lovren and Klavan at centre-off. So yeah, that caught me off guard more than anything. Yeah.
I do think, though, that one of the reasons that might have been the case is because you've played so many games in it. Like, you've made
Possibly,
two
yeah.
trips to the finals. Or was it 3 trips to the finals?
No, two trips to the final. So we lost in Kiev, won in Madrid, and then last time we got to round of 16, I think, and got knocked out by Atletico.
But yeah, it is really impressive. But then also you got to remember, not every team gets in every year. I mean,
No.
United, I don't think we're really going to every year. But you probably, to be fair though, you've got more clean sheets then than basically PSG, Madrid, Barca, Atletico, Bayern, City. You know what I mean? Those are the sort of regular ones.
Yeah.
To be fair,
Juve.
that's some decent stint. That Borussia Dortmund.
Surprising.
Yeah, very surprising. My stat of the week. Now, I was going to go with Liverpool losing 4 in a row for the first time since 1923. But I wasn't. I'm not going to go with that one. My stat of the week. And to be fair, I didn't find this one. My cousin Morgan did, and he wanted a shout-out for it. So this is a shout-out for Morgan. He found that all 42 of Michail Antonio's Premier League goals have come from inside the box. The only Tim Cahill. Sorry, got time. Only Tim Cahill. Time Cahill. That's all the correct for you. Only Tim Cahill with 56, Chicharito Hernandez with 53, and Gabriel Jesus with also 53 have scored more goals without scoring a goal from outside the box.
Wow.
Which I just thought was quite impressive, only to score goals in the box.
Can I just say, that the impressive stat within that impressive stat is the fact that Gabriel Jesus has scored 53.
I thought that as well.
That's really caught me off guard. Wow.
And that they're all in the box. I can imagine Hernandez or Chicharito Hernandez, whoever, scoring just in the box because he is the poacher supremo. He just flicks balls on all over the place and gets them into the back of the net somehow. Tim Cahill, I was a little bit surprised, but to be fair, he's always been an in the box guy. But Jesus, I thought, gosh.
I mean, the thing that's surprising with Michail Antonio as well is like he started his career on the wing,
Yeah. But a lot of his goals. Do you remember that season where I think he was top scorer for a stage with
all headers,
4 or 5 goals, and they were all headers? Yeah, it was like, what is going on? How does this guy score so many headers?
Just like scraping his face along the ground to score tap-ins.
Yeah, he's the sort of guy who'd run it past the keeper, take it onto the line, and then header it into the net just for fun.
That was a good stat. Good stat, Morgan.
Yes.
Good stat. Right, there we are. That's the end of the podcast this week. Slightly shorter one because
nothing happened.
Been a bit of a quiet week in the old world of sport this week, but we'll be back again next week, where hopefully we'll have a bit more to ramble on about.
To analyse at the very least.
Yes. Well, who knows? Perhaps we can do a review of like Formula 1 car liveries because Alfa Romeo's was released today. Alfa Tauri.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I didn't know it was. I knew it was going to be released.
Yeah, so perhaps we'll have a bit of a talk about them. Maybe, who knows? Yeah, we're on Spotify and YouTube. So if you're listening on either of those, why not give us a follow or a subscribe if you want to, obviously. We're also on Pocket Cast, Breaker, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts.
Yeah, you got them.
I've got them all.
You got them.
Nice.
I was sitting on those. I got it all in my head.
You were waiting for me to not say Apple Podcasts, weren't you?
Yeah.
There we are. Right, pleasure as always, Jack. And we shall speak to you next week.